Well, this is going to be the first podcast with these bad boys, so I'm excited. So the power button's on the very back. Just hold that for a couple seconds till the light turns green.
Okay.
And pop it on somewhere. I dig it if you do.
Yeah, I've never done this before, so.
That's what she said.
Literally.
You walked yourself right into that one. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're here at the library. We got to be, voices are a little low. Like I said, I wish we got a collaborative room. That way, we could just outdoor voice. But, it's your host with the moist voice. So I think we should be fine. So let me see if this is working. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Dope. Well, welcome,
Amazing.
Grace.
Hello.
Another day in paradise. You're now on the Wake Up Wednesday podcast. So tell me, when we first met, it was on a DoorDash. So what got you into door dashing? Like, was it just like the extra income, or is it kind of just like wanting to be your own boss, sort of?
Both.
Okay.
So it was right after pretty tragic event. My husband quit his job at the time, and we moved all the way down to Texas.
Jesus.
Yeah. He was having a hard time finding a job because even though it's a bigger city, like, it's pretty hard to find jobs. And so I had entertained the idea down there. And we went through a really, really rough patch where we couldn't do anything. I got on a skip cart, but it was really inconsistent.
What's a skip cart?
Skip cart's like DoorDash.
Oh, okay. So it's just a different form. Is it like Instacart almost?
Kind of. It's more for like 7-Elevens and shit like that. So it was Texas specific. So when we moved back to Kansas, I had to find something to do. Because he still didn't have a consistent job. I was used to being a stay-at-home mom.
Gotcha.
So I didn't want to be away from my baby for 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
So are you like familiar with like the trad wife, whole thing going on right now? Are you like close to the social media space or like the wokeness aspect?
Dive deeper into that, like the wokeness of
like elaborating more on like the wokeness aspect of the
like
nowadays.
women's empowerment type
Not
shit?
necessarily, because I do agree on the women empowerment to a degree. It's just the whole aspect right now with the wokeness, going like, oh, toxic masculinity, but then when you want to quote unquote dilute the what they want to refer to as the patriarchy. It's like when you dilute that, doesn't that make someone have to take charge above someone else? I mean, yeah, equality, like outcome of equality is cool, you know what I mean? But they're fighting for equity, which is basically a sort of power move, in my opinion. And so when it comes down to the women empowerment with feminists, is they take down, or they pin this whole word on toxic masculinity, but then they never take account for toxic femininity. And it's like, oh, so now because guy A did something to you, guy B through Z are the same. And that's where, you know what I mean? That's where that falls. And so also the wokeness aspect of things is basically just hyper-compassionism for certain aspects of, it's more about caring what others feel rather than how yourself feels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I get you. It's half and half for me, really. I get, especially as a human, same with different races, are going to have different point of views of their own struggles.
Gotcha.
And it's human nature to try and pin, oh, my situation is worse or better than yours.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier for other people to project their insecurities and what they think they need to fix in themselves onto other people, because it's easier than doing the work with themselves.
Do you think, in your opinion, right now, like there's a lot of that going on right now?
Oh yeah, even generationally, something that I've gone through with my family is a lot of older generations. They don't want to learn from younger generations.
Yeah.
They view it as like a
can't teach an old dog new tricks, as they say.
Yes, and they think that their way is just superior and they shouldn't listen to anything else. And I think that falls into a lot of people's daily lives and how they perceive different things. especially traditional wives, because
Mm.
I've seen the whole, oh, you need to be modest, oh, you should be in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't really leave a whole lot of space for just, it's whatever you need to do.
Okay, heard that.
So long as it's not hurting anybody else.
Okay, so I hear a lot of that as well. Like as long as I'm not hurting anyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that one word, anyone else. You know what I mean? It's not like, are you impacting? Are you doing it for everyone else, or is it more of just, oh, this is for me? I'm not portraying or like, protruding any sort of how I would characterize it as virtue signaling towards others. Like, how are they gonna perceive me?
Hmm.
Because I feel like nowadays with social media, people go online, they want to be so virtuous, seem so compassionate for others. It makes them sort of like a
Mm-hmm.
moral, some sort of like moral compass, I guess. And I feel like
Yes.
social media's definitely like gotten in the way of moral compasses, like human,
Definitely.
which also comes to like the topic traditional, wives. Is like nowadays you see a lot of just hyper feminism, and I call it hyper feminism because there's a branch of feminism. There's stage one, stage two, stage three. Like the
Yes.
first branch was basically, women want to fight for equal votes and want to work with men. Totally fine. Stage two was basically, I would say, other rights such as um, free the tit, shit like that. You know what I mean? And then now we come into like branch three, where it's a lot like now it's not just yourself, but it's now you want to classify all men toxic if
Like
they don't agree
4B
with your
and
point.
shit like that.
Yeah, yeah, or like the four.
Yeah.
Or what did you say again? The four.
4B.
4B. No,
Yes.
can you define that? I was thinking of something else
So
when you said
the
that. Yeah.
4B movement, from what I've gathered, is essentially just men, or not men, women not wanting to fuck with men at all.
At all.
Like they're
Just.
not having sex with men, they're not having children with men. Some have even gone as far as to not date men.
Interesting. That's
Yes.
that's the 4B movement.
Mm-hmm. It's a trauma response.
It's a one more time.
It's a trauma response.
What kind of trauma are we talking about here? Because I'm very very fascinated when it comes down to like these feminist rally. So I don't know if you're subscribed at all or know about the Daily Wire. Pretty conservative news outlet that I subscribe to. But Matt Walsh created a documentary called "What Is a Woman," which is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, especially nowadays. Especially nowadays. So it's definitely a question.
I think it's gonna ruffle feathers.
We're here. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure I got canceled a couple times already with my opinions and my views. But no, he created a documentary, "What Is a Woman," and he went to a feminist rally. But also, what's your opinions on men, kind of at those feminist rally when really they're fighting, like women are there for themselves, wanting to fight for other women's rights to do what a man can do, but then you see these guys kind of I would say weasel into the whole thing, and it's all like, what's going on here? Because
I think it's a vital part. Men are roughly half of the whole population.
Okay.
So it is important to have men participate in these women's rights things just to support, so long as it's not overboard and extremist.
Gotcha.
Because I have seen that. I don't believe all men are inherently bad. I'm raising a son.
Okay.
I can't believe that.
Heard that.
But I do believe that there are societal things that play into that. Like you were talking on toxic masculinity, there are things that just innately, men are linear, completely logical thinkers, whereas women are logical as well, but they see the interconnectivity of everything in the same pattern as a man's thoughts, and it's just a lot of being pitted against each other. Men don't want to acknowledge when women are right. Women don't want to acknowledge when men are right.
Yeah, it's this whole cat and mouse thing,
right.
back and forth. It's just when it comes down to like putting opinions out. So I did a paper, kind of moving forward from. So we're still on the woke topic, So moving from the feminist sides, we see like in the same area of wokeness, these gender dysphoric children going on social media, going into you know social groups. I call them social groups, not really friends, because as soon as you disagree with a single opinion, they're not your friend anymore. Back away from me. What are you talking about, you Nazi? You know what I mean?
It's funny that you bring that up because that was one of my main reasons for wanting to come on this podcast with you, is because I watched 2 of your podcasts partway through because like there were just so many things I was like, oh my god.
I hope you wrote them down because the thing is I do these podcasts. Yeah, well, I do these podcasts like solo dolo, like on Wednesdays, but then on the weekends, my brother has totally some different views, but we we grew up together, a household of all boys, all boys, and my mom just kind of raising all of us at the same time. But my dad was still there; he was just keeping the roofs, the lights on and all that jazz. But they tend to say that as when you're born, you're more closer to your mother, but then as you grow up, you start to respect your dad more for the things and the sacrifices. Because as a man, you start to grow up and going like, oh shit, it's actually like, people expect this, people expect that, people expect this, and it's like, it's difficult to do the juggling act, but as well to like, you know, going back to like, or not even going back to, but mentioning a couple like psychology aspects, like I have a characteristics more feminine, so I'm more sensitive, more prone to be swayed a different type of way, more than a masculine aspects. And so when we come to the gender dysphoria, I feel like these children, are conflating personalities for quote unquote genders. And then the history about genders, because I wrote a whole paper on it, was from this, I call him a mad doctor, because he did an experiment with these twins, both boy twins, and no one used the term gender before 1960s. There wasn't the term gender. There was just male, female, biological sexes. So sexes was a thing, but not gender. And he decided to do so. The boy, one of the twins, went in to get a what do they call it when they just chop off the tip of your
Circumcision.
circumcision. It went awry, like it went horribly bad to where it kind of chopped off like a pretty big chunk of his member. And so I believe his name was John Money, Dr. John Money, decided to go like, okay, well, we can do something about this. All right, he told his parents, treat him as he feels a girl. Treat him as he's a girl. He's a girl. He doesn't have the male thing. So they did some surgery on a I think he was like 6 months old, 2 months old. Yeah. So for an extended period of time, yeah. So the extended period of time, this was all experimental. Like this has not been done on children. Men, adults, sure, but children. So the whole paper was just about children and going into the postmodern age that we see now. John Money's experiment was a complete failure after the child grew at about 14 and just always knew that he was a boy. Even though for his entire life up to 14, his parents said, you're a girl, wear these dresses, play with these dolls, all these aspects. But he was getting praised because the scientific community thought that the experiment was a success, but they were just kind of inflating his ego because they never interviewed the twins, the experimentees, until the kid came out going like, yeah, no, I always felt like a boy. He detransitioned at around 20 years old, and then I think he eventually committed suicide in around 2006, and then his twin brother couldn't handle that, and so he committed. So both, so ultimately the experiment, the first child dismemberment experiment was a complete failure. And I did a paper on this. I still have yet to do the whole video essay, but it was pretty enlightening to just go deeper in on what's going on. And so when we see today, one of the subjects was the social groups on social media, because there's two different ones: detransitioners and then transitioners. I after 18, after 21, go for it. Do what you please. But to say, this child is like, oh, if you don't say he's a boy or a girl, he's gonna go suicidal. So like so far, no evidence has come out with that. It's definitely a contributor. But when it comes down to the actual science and data that we have, we see more transitioners around 2 years within transitioning becoming more suicidal. And that's
Mm.
because of the different hormones, different or people that they're around.
Right.
Yeah. And so what's your opinion on this whole like because so it's in the still topic of like of wokeness, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So what's like your opinion on basically like affirming someone's gender at a very young age?
So it's iffy, and I can't speak from personal
Mm-hmm.
experience, but I don't even believe we are fully developed until we're like 25.
Okay. Yeah.
When I turned 25, that was really when I was like, wow, all these things make sense. Um,
Yeah.
you know, acknowledging where my parents were right.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually just saw something this morning that was like, oh, where was my train of thought going? Fuck.
You saw something this morning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was some video that I had watched that basically reaffirmed that we are not capable of empathizing really, like truly, until we've experienced something ourselves.
Gotcha.
And it talked about the difference between male children and female children and how they react within society. I think backing up a little bit, children wanting to transition to different genders does come a lot from society. I know in other cultures, not specifically our culture, but there
Like American
are,
culture.
yeah,
Okay.
in other cultures and even cultures that have migrated here,
Yeah.
they do have a sense of multiple genders and these kind of gender fluid individuals. So I don't believe it's an impossibility for a child to feel this way, truly. And I do think that there are other societal aspects that contribute to mental health issues with those children who aren't being affirmed. But that's everywhere. People don't want to work for their mental health. People think, oh, I'm just running on a rat wheel, not getting anywhere, like in so many aspects of life. So it's not just this one. Going even to colors. Boys used to be pink back in like the kings and queens days.
Interesting.
And girls were blue, and now it's opposite, and girls only play with dolls and boys play with trucks. If there wasn't that linear thinking, I don't think it would be such an issue, and children probably wouldn't feel like they needed to completely change who they are just because they like certain things that are deemed one gender or another.
So going back to that word gender, so what would that specifically entail? Because I think there's hundreds of different personalities, but there's only two sexes, zero genders.
So I've vaguely heard of the difference between sex and gender, and it still kind of confuses me. There's too many terms nowadays.
Well, a lot of the thing the woke people would say would be gender is a social construct. They would say they would acknowledge because they don't want to go deep into the whole sexist thing because they kind of now acknowledge that if you died tomorrow and you were buried up 200 years later, they're gonna identify male, female. But then they go into like they say that gender is just a construct, so it's a construction of how you feel. And I want to say, the woke movement nowadays is very particularly, you know, pinned upon feelings, like just feelings. You know what I mean? And that's where we kind of go back into that empathy part of part of the human brain, and how we kind of either A, we develop it because of we experience this or that or the other, or B, we kind of understand, in my opinion, truth, objective knowledge, science, data, all that good jazz. And so we know that there's masculine personalities, feminine personalities. Um, I've seen this podcast with a female military soldier, and she knew she had masculine traits, masculine personality, so she went into the military, but she also took self-defense class in Taekwondo as a kid. and so she was able to defend herself from bullies because even women get bullied, which is just fucked up.
Yep.
Like in high school, middle school, like even girls get picked on. I mean, more in my opinion, toddler age, because it's just like you're trying to get to know your personality, um, based on the Eric Erickson theory of stages of growth. I'm doing a paper that
Mm-hmm.
on that right now, and I think it's like age 6 through I think 4 to 7. You start to want to develop your own identity and personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so another thing about Carl Jung, another developmental psychologist, recognized that children have a state of play, and so they play with each other. That can be
Mm-hmm.
in the aspect of negative play, so picking on each other,
Yeah.
or positive play, playing tag, playing nice with dolls,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's really, I feel, in my opinion, what we're seeing nowadays is with technology on the rise, we're not seeing a lot of kids play with each other. You know, a basic toddler at 3 years old, male toddler at 3 years old can wear a dress, play fantasy with the two female 3 year olds, and that's not gonna mean anything. Or
Yeah.
or a 4 year old toddler can play with Barbie dolls.
Right.
Doesn't really seem like no one, no harm, no done, no foul, right?
Right.
But then you get these woke people that kind of go like, oh, he's playing with a Barbie doll, he must be a girl.
Because they forget that they were children and that they didn't
They
care.
didn't play. I feel like they didn't play. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if you like have these you know I'm going to protect you from the world
Mm-hmm.
type parents with their children, it's like, oh, well, you're not giving them in that social play that they need, so they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to know what identity is, or at least only experiment their identity with the closest relatives and not really experience the whole world, because then you have these,
Mm-hmm.
I call them adult adolescents, that are like in their mid 20s, hell, even 30s, and then get pissed off, throw a 2 year old tantrum when you don't agree
Mm-hmm.
with them. um, and this is all from like just videos on YouTube, especially at pride parades. You know what I mean? It's like you don't agree with them, and they like knock your camera down, or their camera down, throw water in your face, things like that. And so I find that there wasn't a lot of dialogue. There's not a lot of there's definitely a lot of compassionism,
Mm-hmm.
because people don't like to say what they mean nowadays. Um, and so like, well, like that's another form of lying, because you know something's true, and I forget
Mm-hmm.
the two types of like the proper names for the lying part.
Lying by omission,
I
I
think yeah,
believe.
yeah, omission, and there's the other one.
The other one, but I know lying by
Mm-hmm.
omission.
Yeah, where you like it's true, but you
Mm-hmm.
obviously say what they want to hear,
Yeah.
but then you want to say something that's true to you,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't say it because they might hurt their feelings. And it's like, Jesus Christ. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Iron Maiden, a good rock band from the 1980s, you know, a good rock band, metal band, is like they had a song called I think it's like Peace Sells, Peace Sells. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good song, and one of them is all and one of the lyrics, one of the stanzas was, feelings. I didn't know you had any feelings. Because in that way, or in that that single lyric, I feel like it's basically, I'm worried about my own being right now,
Mm-hmm.
to where, do I really have time to ponder on yours?
Fair. So they never grew out of their egocentrism.
I feel like, so what does that mean, egocentrism?
So egocentric is like the original word, and basically it's how children are. They're only going to think of themselves.
Mm.
They're only going to have their experiences to view the world by. When you don't have that experience, you have nothing else to,
Yeah, so like,
to
I think
base it
that's
off
like
of.
I think that's like a 2 3 years old, where basically all they know is what they like. So if they like dinosaurs, they suppose everyone likes dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I mean,
Somewhere.
yeah, and even older,
Yeah.
even older children, even teens, they don't have a lot of life experience,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna know whatever they are around, whatever they're exposed to.
Mm. Do you think the exposure with these, shorts especially, like basically quick informational inputs kind of has a hinder on that social aspect that they kind of either A, grow out of, or B, grow into.
Yes, but I think it's also a matter of perspective. You and
Mm,
I can look at the same thing and have two completely different
yes.
perspectives on that same thing.
Yeah.
Two truths.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
which is right, which is wrong, who knows?
That's the part where I had a conversation. I'm not sure if you're aware of the whole university, Gaza versus Israel. I'm sure you're aware of that, Gaza versus
Yes,
Israel.
yes, I
Where do
am.
you?
I
So
think it's
just
crying.
before I tell the story, before I tell a little quick story, about two different objective realities. My side, his side, but same video.
Yeah.
You know. So where do you stand on it?
Based off of what I've heard, so what I've heard is um, Gaza attacked Israel only because Israel was attacking Gaza because Israel believes that, they're holier than thou, I guess.
Oh shit.
That they're taking it over for their God.
Interesting.
That's what
That's a whole new
I've
perspective.
heard.
Yeah.
Um, and I've spent a lot of time on TikTok. So
Okay.
I originally saw, okay, these Gaza people are
Mhm.
just attacking these Israelites for no reason.
Interesting.
But when you look into it and look into the fact that they've been illegally occupying land in Gaza, um, and doing all of these things, I don't know if you heard about the children in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any reason why that should ever happen, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, elaborate more
So-
for the guests. You know what I mean? Like what's going on with at least that hospital aspect.
So essentially, they told everybody to evacuate, and that they were going to take care of the children.
Mm.
They were babies in like the NICU, ICU type baby thing. They never went back for the babies. So months later, they went. Other people, outside people, went back in, and the babies were still there.
Damn.
And they were not alive, for lack of better context.
Yeah, I mean war.
Yeah.
War does bring the wretchedness of human beings on all aspects. I hate war. I wish this wasn't going on. I wish people weren't dying. But when it comes to where I fall on it, so this was a video. So going back to the little story because it does pertain to that. That's why I kind of segued into it. So I am definitely for Israel. Let them do what they got to do. At the end of the day, Gaza, these liberals that like to put a flag, a gay pride flag, and say gays for Gaza, they don't know what's going on in Gaza. They don't know that if they, we have different feeds. We definitely have different feeds. When I see that plastered all over like CNBC, or these left wing, so more Democrat. Are you familiar with like left wing, right wing news media outlets?
Vaguely.
So left wing would be like CNN, CNBC, Democratic news outlets where they lean a lot more towards Democratic, and then the right wing is basically Republican. So like the Daily Wire, or I believe I think it's News Daily. A lot of other Fox. Fox is very right wing. There's not a lot of middle grounded, news outlets that'll just give you the scoop and that's it.
Sides.
Yeah, like
The
both sides,
truth.
basically indefinite. Like this is just this is just reality. People are dying. And so, what's going on there is that, I see these flags and they don't know that if you were someone that was homosexual over there in Gaza, they would hang you within an instant. Women don't have rights in Gaza. Israel actually gave Gaza land in 2016 for peace, but then Gaza kind of, for lack of better words, pissed it away after they attacked for that. Like they give them land and then they proceed to attack Israel. But then they forget that Israel is a superpower and Israel has weapons, and Gaza is ran by terrorist organizations that say death to America. Yeah, so it's very interesting, like when you see that the Taliban is surrounding that area, but also terrorist organizations that say death to America almost every single day over there. But then, in my opinion, what's going on is like with Biden's open border, you get a lot of these new immigrants coming in, and then not brainwashing, but definitely leaning these college kids especially, since they're so young and they're so open to new information, they kind of just give them their aspect. Oh, I'm from Hamas. Israel's attacking us, and all they hear is someone's attacking someone. War's wrong. Let's do it. You know what I mean? But then the
Right.
whole aspect for the whole protests was beginning. First was because I think colleges had investments with Israel, like they had like some tax money going to Israel. Israel's funding
Mm-hmm.
a war. They want the colleges to defund, basically pull their investments from Israel.
I've actually heard a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've heard that America specifically
Mm-hmm.
has funneled in billions to Israel's
Oh yeah.
healthcare, education, all that shit, and people were in a whole coronary.
Yeah. Well,
because
yeah.
they can't pay for our healthcare.
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, this just veers off before I get to the story, the proper story. This veers off, but like, it's crazy how and I'm Mexican, but the people coming from that open border that Biden did set forth is like El Salvadorians, Venezuelans, hell, Iranians, Chinese people, even just people from around the globe coming in through Mexico's open border, getting $1,000. I think like not even thousand, like $5,000 and housing and food, and they tend to complain.
Crazy.
Well, they tend to complain about it while we have literal veterans, in Wichita homeless.
Yeah.
It's a travesty.
Every day.
Every single day. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But going back to this story, I was in the esports room, and there's a lot of open-minded characters there. They don't really recognize with like left-wing policies, right-wing policies, but they're kind of just, oh, I hate war. Fair enough. And so I showed my friend John the video of a literal Jewish person with David's what is it, the David Star, the Star of David.
Yeah.
I was close. And basically, he wanted to get to class, but he was being ideally segregated from going to a certain part of campus from these Hamas supporters because he's Jewish. And then California's campus, you had to wear a wristband to get into certain places because they were blocked off by Hamas supporters. And so it's getting crazy to where like so I want to get your opinion on this. Is we do have the freedom of speech here. You have freedom of speech. You have freedom of protest. Definitely ish nowadays. You can get canceled any time of the week nowadays. But do you ever think that protests should get violent?
I don't think that they should start out violent. I think if somebody hits me, I'm gonna deck them back.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah. Well, that's your right? That's your right.
Yeah.
Like if somebody, if someone hits me first, it's over. Like you're going on the floor.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to like what's going on in campuses, especially like they hold up signs, but then if you don't have a mask like they do, what they do is like you want to step into their little arena, I guess you could say, or their little confined. They kind of block you off. They get in your way. They make a shield. They gather their hands, arms
That
together.
would piss me off.
And yet, well, like regular journalists just want to see what's going on inside, and they want to film those tents that are these tents that are called library tents. These tents that are called toilet tents. They're called sleeping quarters. They occupy this whole garden, and then they just set up tents like a little city. I like to call them mini cults. I like to call them mini cults.
And they're students? Or
They are students, and they wear masks. Main priorities because they know they're not supposed to be doing this, and they don't want to be caught. And that was words from them as well. Like they say, why do you wear the mask? Well, because we don't want to be identified. So
I mean, fair. People are heinous.
well, especially like college students, when it's all like, you in my opinion, you enroll, you get, you're free from your parents' home, your parents' clutches, and you can identify with anyone you want. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, you identify with, I deemed the wrong crowd, you flunk on your grades, drop out, and then next thing you know, either you pissed away 2 years of college, like university, and now you're like stumped in student loan debt,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, one of the things about, because I'm in Turning Point USA, so Charlie Kirk, yeah, so Charlie Kirk organized the whole organization, and what he believes is college is a scam because you can go to like the technical force,
Yeah.
and be a plumber and make 100,000. But I kind of, in that sense, disagree with, even though I'm in the like I'm in the organization, I disagree because I'm going for a psychology degree. And so that's kind of like there's good. It's crazy how nowadays there's good education, bad education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you're going for gender studies major, relax. I feel like
Yeah.
relax. But what do you think? Like, do you think college is a scam, or do you think like there is such thing as like a good pathway, bad pathway? Choose a career, choose a technical career.
So I think humans love extremes.
Okay.
They fucking love them. Do I think that college should cost so much? No. Do I think that it's something that should be budgeted um, into our, what is it, our budget, like our government budget? Absolutely.
Interesting.
Because they
Can you elaborate on
they
that?
want us to work.
Yeah.
But the systems are set up in part to benefit people who make more money. They're
Really?
made to keep people in debt, period.
Yes, I definitely agree with that because I was just listening to David Ramsey
Mm-hmm.
about, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Not quite. Heard the name.
Yeah, he's founded the Baby Steps about how to become a millionaire, and basically studied, I think like what was it, like 10,761 millionaires,
Mm-hmm.
and after following these steps, which is basically, I talked about this on the last podcast. Baby step one is like saving 1,000, paying off debt, investing in yourself, paying off your home, and then giving and living like no one else. Seems simple enough,
That's
but
nice in
but
theory.
well, it's theory, but it's definitely proven.
Yeah.
Baby step two is the main part about debt, because one of the things is pay off your credit card, snip it. Like, you don't need a credit card because the credit card keeps you in debt. You don't need a mortgage because a mortgage keeps you in debt.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
But how else are you gonna really own a home?
You own it. No, yeah, you own it.
I make minimum wage in Kansas is $7.25.
Yeah, still, it's crazy.
I make $4.75 more than minimum wage, and I still could not, just by myself, not factoring in that I have a child. I still would not be able to live in the city that I work in comfortably, especially not if I had like a car payment or something like that, or a mortgage. I would not be able to live in the city that I work in if I was working 40 hours a week. That's crazy.
It sucks. It
Rent should
definitely
never
sucks,
have
yeah.
exceeded a third of your like entire monthly paycheck.
So let me play the devil's advocate here. So would you want a different career path in the near future that makes a little bit more?
Yes and no. I struggle with a lot of mental health issues. And again, that goes back to upbringing and generations of just shit. Not being raised properly, not being given the proper resources, all of that. But if I had to, I might.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that I always listen to, because me myself, I'm no successful person whatsoever. I kind of just listen to these successful people and then kind of put in the work a little bit, and then after I see, oh wait, that's actually kind of successful, let me just keep on going with it. So I'm on baby step one, where basically I gotta save $1,000, which is hard because you're on DoorDash, because I'm on DoorDash full time. But I'm hopefully gonna get a full time position at WSU Tech, making only $12 an hour. Yeah,
yep, that's me. Same.
It's not that much, but I live with parents, so it's all like eventually, a lot of the millionaires I studied got there in about 5 to 10 years. Big gap, 5-10 years. But when you look at it, like I'm 28, 10 years, 38. I would love to be a millionaire by 38. I'm only a third of the way there. If the life expectancy is 80 something, above 80, maybe 90s, I'm 30 something. You know what I mean? 40, halfway there. Might as well, right? And so, like, at some point, you make that kind of a realization. And so one of the things that learned from an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, was if you list out the top 10 things that you would love to change or do in the next year, what would those goals be? You know,
Hmm.
and so I'm not sure if you're religious or at all. No. So one of the thing about like sin, it actually comes from a Greek term in archery. Uh, yeah, so it translates into sin. I forgot the actual term. Let me look it up here. Greek word for.
Sorry, y'all. I have a
Oh no, you're
almost
good.
2-year-old who doesn't sleep.
Oh no, you're good. So it's called hamartia, which is just means to miss the mark, which translates into sin, into Latin. And so when we take that kind of reference, it's like, well, you don't have any targets to hit. And so you're constantly shooting arrows at something, but you don't know what they are. So you kind of give these top 10 targets, right? You give yourself 10 targets to hit. Well, after you list out 10, and it's way harder after 5. like I can think of 1,000, but then after I start listing shit, it's like after 5, I'm like, wait, I thought this was gonna be easy. Fuck. But then after 10, pick the one thing that you can for certainly wanna just demolish out that list. And so now you got a target. So now you're starting to really aim at something. Because most of anxiety doesn't really come from lack of direction, but too many directions.
And lack of knowledge, though, doubled down. Lack of knowledge is definitely attributes to anxiety.
Oh no, yeah, well, yeah, definitely. So like, if you're not knowledgeable on what you per se want in life, because like I speak to a lot of people that go like, oh, I just live by day, that rat wheel you're talking about, and oh, we might die tomorrow, and it's like, well, you already didn't leave yourself any room for growth tomorrow, since you already cut off today, because we could just leave tomorrow. And then I kind of discussed this with my brother, going like, well, if you wake up tomorrow after yesterday you said you're gonna die and you don't die, now that's just a depressing mood. That's just a depressing mood. And so like, well, why not leave yourself some presents for tomorrow? Take care of yourself like you had the responsibility of taking care of someone that you're responsible for. You know what I mean? But then people kind of take that aspect and treat it as narcissism. It's all like, oh, it's all about me. Like, there is certain cases where like social media does bring out the narcissist in people. But then when you get down to the, oh no, I'm just taking care of myself, because if you learn to take care of you, you start to learn how to take care of others. So it's not like, but nowadays we're seeing a lot of like, I'd rather take care of 5 people in my social group and then take care of me. But then when you have a different opinion, you grow up a little faster than they do. They go like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, who are you? And so in my opinion, I feel like to give yourself less anxiety is to give yourself a point of interest, decreasing those options, and shooting your arrows at that one target. Yeah. And so that's where I kind of ask that question, like, what career? You know what I mean? So I'm going to be an orientation leader at WSU Tech, and one of the questions I want to ask the students, because I was at Butler Community College a couple times after high school, but then dropped out because drug dealing is so awesome.
Oh, not the drug dealing part, but me too.
It's disgusting. It's a disgusting world because you think you're the shit for so long. It took me 8 years to like quit weed and like finally open my eyes and be like, oh wait, no, the grass is greener on the other
So
side.
18 to 26. Honestly, me too. It's been a really recent thing, but I'm not myself. And it definitely didn't help my mental health.
It kind of hinders your development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, you don't see. And you see some, but you don't see. And I feel like social media kind of explodes the pot smoking successful people like Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. But you don't see a lot of. But you don't see a lot of like successful people advocating. Oh yeah, keep smoking. You're fine. It's like, no. At least for me, I kind of saw myself. As soon as I smoked one blunt, I wanted another one. As soon as I got the other one, I wanted to eat. As soon as I ate, I wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
And then when I woke up, do it again.
And it's an addiction, especially with people, and I know people are gonna hate me for that.
Oh no, I got it
But-
tatted on me for a reason at 18,
Really?
THC, and I'm saying right now, it's an addiction.
It is.
And when you break out of that, it's like really good.
But people hate admitting, because
Yeah.
it's not so much that the substance itself is addicting. I would go on to say the majority of people that use and abuse marijuana have mental health issues. And deeper into that, their body doesn't make dopamine as well as it should. So you get addicted. Yes. So you get addicted to the dopamine that it gives you, not the substance itself necessarily.
Yeah, that hit, that adrenaline.
And that goes back into people. They want it black or white. They want it one way or the other, and they're not going to listen to you if you disagree with them, even if they're just taking you linearly.
So explain that linearly, like, because you mentioned that a couple times. So what do you like define linear?
So when you just blatantly say, "Oh, war is bad," for example, killing people for no reason, killing innocent people, that's bad. But war doesn't have to mean killing. It can mean other things.
Interesting. Like what? Elaborate.
Not specifically with war do I have an example, but just like mental health, when you say
like at war with yourself, or like war with a drug, or like
no, like war. Like you can fight a war and be peaceful. I truly believe that.
Interesting.
War doesn't have to just mean I'm fighting and killing these people because I don't agree with them. Same with, you can say marijuana is addicting and not mean that you're getting addicted to just the substance. You had mentioned, and this was actually what I wanted to come on the podcast for, was in one of your previous videos you said no one was holding a gun to your head and forcing you to work with this company.
Yes.
And while that is true, it is very linear thinking.
Interesting.
Because whereas no, they're not holding a gun to your head, but if you say you have multiple jobs in a year, that's going to cost you more to file your taxes at the end of the year. You may not always have the option to just flawlessly move in between companies, so there might be a lack of funds, which puts you further in debt. You have to work. You can't not work. One of the recent things that I've been seeing is, and the line is, they're making homelessness illegal. They're not making homelessness illegal. That's very linear thinking to get you to swerve onto this one way of thinking. They made it illegal to sleep in public.
Okay. So how does that not apply to homelessness?
It definitely does, because it does target homeless folks. But they're not making being homeless illegal. They are making sleeping in public illegal. And yes, I agree that it's shady, especially when people don't have other places to go. But just the way you say things, man, makes all the difference.
No, yeah. The way people, it's kind of like, I've seen this one video on the whatever podcast where a pretty conservative guy was, trying to make his point to a feminist, and she said, "You can say it, but the tone that you're saying it is wrong." It's not like, "Oh, you're tone policing," you know what I mean? And it's all like I'm definitely gonna say some outrageous shit for sure, but it doesn't mean I don't believe it. Now, when it comes back to it, I would still say that no one's holding a gun. Like, well, when we look at the studies when it comes to successful people, like after they get out of debt, after they have nothing else, they find a lack of purpose, but they still work at the job. And so they basically mean that they've already tuned themselves out from the job to where they're just mindless zombies for the corporation. So now they have a certain aspect about capitalism, and capitalism is just taking advantage of the people. And it's all like, well, I mean, me, myself, I had 20 jobs. But that's because one of the things that my history teachers always said is know your worth. So if you're, working as a, server for 235, have two kids, and you just can't really make ends meet, it's all like, well, have you really like dolled up your resume and tried for something else? Customer service, make a couple extra dollars more. I mean, I was at Sam's in the beginning of the year, and I was management at $20 an hour. But then as soon as I got my car back, or a car back, DoorDash just seemed to liberate me from clocking in, clocking out, and just being more free to listen to podcasts, do what I gotta do. But now I'm in a situation where it's like, oh man, I don't really picture myself doing this my whole life. Definitely a side hustle.
Right.
And so that's where I kind of went into the WSU Tech job and being a moderator for the esports hub. That way I have some sort of steady income, but still make, I would say, about $30, $50 less on DoorDash. But the sacrifice is I get to sit, and moderate a whole hub, do my homework, all that good jazz. So I really feel like when you're in that rat wheel, that rat race, you don't kind of necessarily weigh out your options. You don't have any free time to it because you just have so many different, pathways of what to do and what to do, and which are that anxiety web that we were kind of talking about. We're like, oh, I have to pay this bill, get out of this credit card debt, gotta work. I just picked up an extra shift. My friend's birthday is tomorrow. My mom invited me for dinner, and so it's all like life, right? But I feel like in my field of psychology, because I'm going to have an office, I'm going to have, counseling services. The main reason why you see a therapist is because you came into my office. You know what I mean? So like it's my job to help you what's going on. And so you get a lot of these woke people. So going back to the wokeness, is that they start to like sue therapists for giving quote unquote bad advice. When in reality, I feel like, why'd you come in here in the first place if you do know it all?
And how are they suing these therapists? Unless they're telling you to go kill yourself.
No, so like with a famous one that's getting sued is Jordan B. Peterson. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. So he has multiple books, but he's also gotten really famous in 2016 when the gender dysphoria movement in Canada kind of took a big movement on making it legislatively illegal to not call someone by their preferred pronoun.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he was just advocating on it hinders my freedom of speech. Does it mean that I don't call my students by their pronouns? No. That means that why is the government telling me to do that? Right. That's what he's protesting for. But he had students literally say, "Oh, I'm identified as they," and he's like, "Okay, they," But when a government comes in and says you have to, if not, it's jail time.
Yeah.
It made him famous, and a couple of his quote unquote, and it wasn't even clients. I say quote unquote because in the university website you can file a complaint on any educator, and you don't have to even be a part of the campus. Yeah, Canada's school systems, it's kind of haywire. So he kind of stepped down from the position of a teacher, professor there. It's very crazy, especially nowadays. But that's where I feel like Nietzsche's a philosopher. Nietzsche's famous quote comes in: "If you, the longer you stare into an abyss, alas, you become the abyss." And to that I say, like, well, you haven't stared long enough, because in the darkness you're always going to see a silver lining or the light. And so I kind of want to be that psychologist that goes deep into it, like deep into the wokeness, and just be like, where is the central problem? What really is like? I feel like as a scientist, you kind of want to question. It's your kind of curiosity that takes over and questions everything, and says, well, is red really red? Even though I don't, I'm pretty sure red's red. But is her red my red? That's the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, wokeness, it's just, especially with social media, it's a contagion that kind of left us in the fog, if you will. Because as soon as you say the fog's cleared up, maybe you just clocked in, so the fog kind of cleared up. But then when you stare at your phone, scroll through YouTube shorts like I do at night, you tend to you tend to kind of get back into the fog, and so. Oh,
I'm sorry, you guys video.
yeah, you're fine.
I'm gonna go behind you.
Yeah, go for it. Go for
Okay.
it. You're fine. As long as
Alright.
you're okay being on camera. As long as you're
Well,
okay being on
okay,
camera.
let's see. I need to see where I gotta get this.
But yeah, I mean, like you also said, like you love this library. I mean, you never knew it was here, so hopefully you come on back even more. Check out some books. I checked out one of Jordan Peterson's, books, 12 Rules for Life Beyond Order, which it's pretty good. It's pretty like cliche. Oh, rules for life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, do you like it? Do you do any philosophizing or any philosophers or psychologists?
Yes and no. I take what other people say and I do apply it, but I feel like I have a unique outlook. I was one of those people that grew up, you couldn't tell me anything. I had to experience it myself.
Yeah, well, you did say you grew up in Eureka, so pretty small town, so it's kind of like, hopefully.
Yes. No.
But no, I mean, growing up in a small town into the big city, like, are you seeing a lot of, like, obviously, like, different ways of living, perhaps?
Definitely.
Yeah, because you said, like, the old people over there were kind of, like, harnessed into their way of thinking, but that was kind of old school. Like, what other way is there? Right?
Yeah, and there weren't very many viewpoints that were put out without you being like demonized, for lack of better terminology, and I think it's just on a larger scale here.
Interesting.
Like
yeah.
there's
Well, the city, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's just as many, not as many things, but the same things will happen in a small town that happen in a big city, just on a very much larger scale.
Excuse me, I'll try to knock off everything.
You're fine.
Gracious. But yeah, so everything will just happen on a smaller scale.
Just
like
a
crime
micro.
still happens.
Yeah.
There's still different people, people with different viewpoints. It's just very hierarchical everywhere you go, and there's more people here that align with the values of other folks.
Yeah. So
Good.
that's the one thing that I really don't like, especially nowadays with sociologists, is they're not doing their due diligence on really studying social. They're kind of just going like, that's just the way things are, and it's like, are you really in the scientific community environment in order to question what's going on, or just I'm afraid of getting patronized and canceled if I don't question what's going on? And so I'm in the field of psychology in order for the person, single individual. And so I've always said, like, out of 100 clients that I'll probably get, maybe 1 or 2 are really going to take the advice seriously. And I'm still studying, you know what I mean? So it's not, but, we're close to an associate, closer to a bachelor's, and then, a couple, I think 4 more years for a master's. So we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. And yeah, I mean, that's why I always wanted to invite people over with different viewpoints, you know what I mean? So we discussed a lot of topics, a lot of my linear thinking on certain things. But I definitely encourage, are you always on TikTok, or like do you ever go on like YouTube and maybe like, so like if you ever hear something on TikTok, do you ever like open up like Google and be like, let me search that up, or like, are you always just curious, or you kind of just take it at face value?
So both.
Okay.
If it's something that really interests me, because I found that it's very draining. I had to stop watching a lot of the Israel versus Gaza stuff.
Yeah. It's sad.
Because it hurts.
Yeah, it's sad. War fucking sucks.
But I do try to get those viewpoints through maybe searching up, hey, opposing opinion of this. Because I am just like you. I'm a person that if what you say makes sense and you can back it up, like, I'm perfectly fine with changing my opinion. Like, that is the logical thing to do.
Yeah, logic, right? Yeah, well, I'm like here, and I think like next semester I'll be taking logic over ethics. Like ethics, I feel like ethics kind of comes naturally to maybe a scientist, mind, maybe. I mean, what do you?
Depends.
Yeah.
Different people.
Yeah. So like, let's see.
While you're looking up,
Yeah.
so ethics meaning like moral, yes, moral.
Yeah. Study a concept
So
of moral
that
right.
depends on
The
people.
person,
That
yeah.
depends on cultures. I think up until what 10, 20 years ago, they were still doing like no anesthesia, nothing castrations on young girls in Africa.
Oh my God.
Killing like disabled individuals in other countries. That was
Ethically
a thing
wrong,
that
yeah,
was,
ethically wrong, yeah.
but it wasn't to a lot of people there. Same way with racism in this country, slavery in this country.
Or like, the mass mutilation of children.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's ethically wrong. A 6-year-old comes to you, I want my dick off. So like, let's relax. Let's put the brake on this for a
You're
bit.
six.
You know what I mean?
You're six, but there's so many things that contribute to it, and typically the worst people are the ones that are put in power. So
Yeah. Let me date this real quick. Did you want to do it in 30 minutes? We're still recording on the YouTube, so podcast isn't over technically.
Oh, sure, maybe we were just diving into ethics.
Bet. So, while I'm just typing this up, do you have any other, like, examples of, like, the ethic morality going on right now in the U.S. particularly?
Define subjects. Oh, a big thing that I actually had to go through personally was whether or not to circumcise children.
Okay. Yeah.
I think originally it was that it was done religiously, and it was done to keep men from sinning, because they were aware that the extra skin was pleasurable, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of a big fallacy.
And
you know what I mean?
Wait, fallacy like
False.
That the top.
Yeah, causes extra pleasure.
Really? I mean, I guess
In
there's no
my
way
opinion,
to tell.
I'll be honest. The 28 bodies that I've had, none of them has said anything about the extra piece of fucking skin. I'm gonna be real right now.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna front. Like, none of them said, "Oh, this is amazing." You know what I mean?
Right.
I had one comment on going like, "I've never smashed a dude who had extra skin," so I guess that was new for her. But when it came down to it, I don't really think. I think it's more pleasure for the guy.
And yeah.
Okay, so for like on the guy's end. Okay,
for
heard
women,
that. Yeah.
It's more. I've heard that seal, like it creates a seal and helps maintain moisture.
Interesting.
I think that's been within the women, and that does lead to more pleasure because you're not drying out from all the friction.
You're not drying out from all that. Never. I've never been more proud in today by a woman ever. I'm just kidding. But no, well, you also get these facts about like if you do circumcise, they're more prone to infections. They're more prone to other things down there. You know what I mean?
They've even tried to come back and say that having the foreskin makes you more likely to get like STDs.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
well, you're carrying extra shit, right?
How the heck does that work? And like they bring up cleanliness too, and I'm like, well, if men were taught cleanliness the way that women were taught cleanliness, maybe it wouldn't be a big deal.
Boom. That's the one
women
thing.
have kids.
Well, that's the one thing that they didn't teach us in what is that? The one class where you get sex ed. Yeah, they didn't teach guys. It's like guys, boys. If you do have, this is how you're gonna have to clean yourself. But then, boys from like the ages of like 6 all the way to 13, are still filthy. I remember being a fucking, because you said you had a boy, so I don't know what you're in for, but I do know what you're in for. He's gonna have him smell off at least once in his life with a friend. He's gonna not want to take showers at all. Like at all. He's gonna hate showers at a certain point and refuse to once he knows how to bathe himself. It's gonna be good for a couple of years, but then he's like, wait a minute.
What's the importance of this again?
Yeah. Everyone smells like me at school.
But I honestly, and it's something that, wasn't talked about, women did that too. I went through a phase where I was like 9 or 10, where I stopped brushing my teeth.
Oh.
Like,
okay.
I didn't like brushing my teeth for some reason.
Interesting.
there's just in that transition between, oh, I'm a child going into a young adult,
Puberty.
you lose a, like, I feel like you lose all those skills and all those, like, habits that you formed because you're working on other things, developing other things.
Well, do
mentally.
you lose it, or do you process even more to where it becomes almost a side project?
Fair, less important because you don't
Boom.
see the importance of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like you never lose things, but you kind of store them away in your filing cabinet in the very back of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, like that was one of the things that I experienced with. I like your bag, by the way, mushrooms. That was one of the things I experienced with the quote unquote hero dose when I was doing all these drugs. I did my research on the hero dose, how people go through some sort of you know spiritual enlightenment, if you will. And so I decided to take 5 grams, and I've talked about this on the cast, but it's such a wonderful story, I feel. Yeah, like my first dose was definitely an eighth with the homie Jesus, and his name was Jesus. It's not really like my boy Jesus, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? No, his name was Jesus, and he's all like, dude, you want to do these shrooms? I just got him. I was like, fuck, dude, I've heard about these things. I've already taken acid. Let's fucking do it. Fuck yeah, dude. I was a psychedelic head back when I was fucking 22. And so literally, like I'm all like, I already took one tab of acid. Let's see how fucking shrooms is. I've been hearing about it, so I do it. And on the 8th, I remember being at I don't know if you've been at the nature center.
I have.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's this broken bridge, and it's just overflown by almost a stream of water. And I love being there, laying down. I used to smoke blunts there. I called it my peaceful place, my secret hidey home. And yeah, like I remember being on shrooms and thinking I was there. I say thinking because I really actually thought I was there. Until I told my friend, I'm all like, dude, did we go to the nature center? Because I remember you guys driving me back and I was just falling asleep in the back. He's like, no, dude, you've been on the couch the whole time. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta go to my room. But on the 5 grams, it was me and my bro. We were living in the house that we live in today, but it was like a family house. My parents were living in my mom's sister's place while she was in Chicago. And so they kind of entrusted us with the family house. We all live there now, but like I think this was like 5 years ago. It was just me and my bro. And so, I got my hands on 5 grams of shrooms, and I did my research on a hero dose and all this, deep realms of your mind and spiritual this and enlightenment that. And I was like, fuck it up. So I took 5 grams. Oh my world went upside down. For like the next couple of days. I would like to say I see why shrooms are starting to be studied for mental illnesses, because it really did go through the realms of my mind. Things that I did were like putting shit in the back of the filing cabinet and not, digging it out and going. That's where the trauma lies, and so with shrooms, it kind of reverts that, puts the darkest shit you thought was wrong, like you thought wasn't real, that never happened, but then puts it right in your face at peak. And it's like, oh, you didn't want to, confront this memory? Boom. It's a bam.
That was the scariest thing.
Hey, Eric, what happened in California? Hey, Eric, you remember that time? It was crazy, but at the same time, like after a couple days of the come down, I was pretty chill. I was like a fucking hippie for like the next couple months. But then, reality set in. I'm like, oh, I gotta clock in.
Yeah.
So I gotta clock in. And so I feel like nowadays you get, where a lot of cities are legalizing a lot of these things. I developed a word called cypersistence, which basically entails, and this basically goes, it's akin to perma-high, as, druggies like to call it, because I used to call myself a perma-high person. Constantly blunts on blunts every 2 hours. Well, now with the substance being so openly available, you get these people getting these psilocybin chocolate bars and taking one every single hour.
Oh.
Well, no, yeah, and like, oh, I love the way that felt. So the dopamine hits, and then come down is all like, oh shit, this is reality. Let me take another gram. But they never go every time I interview, or at least not interview, but like definitely ask people, Like, have you taken shrooms that go like, oh yeah, I took in 2 grams, 3 grams, and 8 is the highest they'll probably go, as far as the people that I've talked to. But every time I talk about like 5 grams or more, they go like, oh no, I'm too scared, and it's not like, okay, let's see who has something to confront. I see somebody has some things they're running away from.
Because you hear about these people that do that much, and then they just like, they're never the same.
Well,
like I did 3, and that was my max, and it was my first time.
So when you say never the same, I mean, aren't humans' job to grow?
I agree, but I think that using substances, especially those that alter your brain, it's kind of dangerous.
Interesting.
They
Well, I mean, I'm not an advocate for like the long term, but definitely if it's like a solo session with like those ayahuasca trips that people go to New Mexico for, because I think it's like legal if you're with a shaman, a spiritual shaman.
I don't know that.
Yeah, so like if you are in New Mexico or I think Arizona even, you find these shamans that'll lead you to a trail, empty trail, and then you smoke a bowl of ayahuasca, and then you're just guided through the spiritual journey of you. And a lot of people, quote unquote successful people, who have been under a lot of stress, backstabbing people in order to get to the top, go to these trips, and all of a sudden they're enlightened, and then they become like a hippie from like 50 to 80. And they go like, oh yeah, I was a big hard ass until my ayahuasca trip, or like a mushroom trip with the shaman in India, New Mexico, Alaska, Mexico. And so like you can always take those trips, but you also said, you were kind of scared because they changed. So was it like a negative change? The people that you kind of talked?
Specifically acid. That was the one that's on my brain.
Definitely different compound.
Yes,
Definitely different
that's
compound.
what I was alluding to, like shrooms and ayahuasca. I don't know much about ayahuasca, but I assume it's a plant based.
Yeah.
Okay. You just, once you realize things, and especially if you're not completely open to just, I guess, all that change, it can have negative side effects for your mental health, and especially if you take acid.
Yeah, no, acid's a trip and a half.
It can make you a little crazy.
Well, yeah, no, like there's that word psych-resistance, where you're constantly on the lookout for a higher level of thinking because you thought the world connected like this on acid, but then when you came down, it's like, wait a minute, I don't accept reality. I don't want reality.
It sounds like acid. The beginning of an addiction. Honestly, when you were describing it earlier, I was like, especially the people that stay perma-high, like, that sounds like an addiction.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, life isn't a piece of cake. Like, especially not in the society that has been built. But I think unless you just want to, pass on, go for the deep sleep, you have to find a way to enjoy what you're in right now.
Yeah, so what is the main compound in acid? Because I know compound, I know it's not psilocybin. I mean, because psilocybin is Bronsted-Lowry acids. The first category of acids are protons, donor that in acid can LSD, also known as leucine. So lysogenic acid diethylamide. So that's interesting. So it's not even psilocybin. So that's where, mushrooms, I think ayahuasca contains psilocybin, I think, because it's tea. But I mean, just like the compounds THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, we have endocannabinoid receptors, so those bad boys bond. Alcohol, we don't have receptors for those things, so our liver's just wanting to process all that poison, because it's literal poison. And so your body wants to, dilute it, excrete it as soon as possible, which I found this out on my carnivore diet, is when you take alcohol, you stop processing proteins and fats. And like that's straight alcohol, beer. Yeah. So people find it a hard time to lose weight when they're drinking, but also eating, because their body's so fixated on burning it in their liver liver that they just can eat a whole mass amounts because it's not focused. It's not its main priority to digest it. Yeah, and so you see a lot of people go into like taco trucks at Old Town or something, and next you know gaining weight, and so but at the same time thermodynamics, you know, calories in, calories out. We all have a energy bond that you know needs specific calories. They wouldn't put it on labels if it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah, and so I had that argument with my dad. He's all like, yeah, I know this guy at work. He ate a whole sandwich, and then he ate his wife's food that he made him. Why doesn't he get big like I do? And I go like, okay, but are you holding his hand at home? Do you know how much he's eating?
Right.
Oh no, he tells me he tells you. So you're just gonna take it at face value.
Yep.
like you believe everything you see on the internet, don't you? You're like, you know what I mean?
Real?
It's all
That
like
sounds like fucking old men telling me, "Oh, I had iguanas back in the '90s. I know how to take care of them."
he had what?
So I work with reptiles.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I work at a pet store.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe how many people come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've had them when I was a child," and they're like 30, 40, 50.
Jesus.
And I'm like, yeah, and have you done any research into like them now?
Yeah.
Like the information you had way back when is not the information we have now.
Did it change much? Like, is there new
Oh, yeah.
obviously there's new developing information, but have iguanas or like specific reptiles kind of symbiotically changed?
They haven't genetically changed. No, we found out more things about
Heard that.
all reptile species. Honestly, their nutrition needs, their supplemental needs.
I was going to go to that one.
Yeah, even down to if they experience emotions and pain and all sorts of things.
Well, you get these on the topic of animals, you get these stories like Old Yeller, right? An old dog with a but when you hear, I think back in like the early thousands, maybe 90s, you got these people going like, oh, I had a dog that lived all the way to 30, and then you get this construct of your dog will only live to a certain amount. But then why did dogs back in like the 1920s live up until the old guy was old? He's had him since a child.
How did all these old folks smoke cigarettes and take drugs and never develop lung cancer?
Sounds like tobacco for the win without cigarette shit. But also like going back onto the dog, the nutrition. Like dog food has so much shit: corn, wheat, potatoes.
Yes.
I mean, what's your opinion on like feeding dogs? Because I feed my German Shepherd raw bone meat.
Nice. Yes, I have a cat that I'm transitioning over to a raw diet. I believe
I'm not, because my dad's going like he's old, he can't eat that, he's gonna die sooner. I was like, dude, he's a fucking werewolf. Like he's a wolf, not a werewolf.
Yes.
He's a wolf.
They're carnivores.
Yeah, no, they're canine carnivores, and so it only makes sense to me just slap on like here's a chuck steak, eat that, and he eats it, and he has a big smile on his face. But now he's not eating too much of his regular dog food.
Good.
And then no, that's great. I'm trying to get him into like at least the dog pebbles that are full of meat, like just made of meat. I fed we had a dog, a pit bull named Pixie. She had these kind of pimples under her belly for a minute of time, and then I'm all like, well, like switch your diet, because it wasn't my dog, it was my bro's dog, and he was feeding her like this Dollar Tree brand dog food, dry dog food. And then I'm all like, well, I mean, you're gonna have to get a little expensive, because an all meat pebble diet is gonna be pretty expensive. Well, it's his dog, he loves it, so he switched it. Yeah, the thing went away.
I believe it.
And she was way more energized than ever before. Oh my god, she would like to play fetch. She would literally scratch herself in the back of on the grass, because how much energy she had. And it was just, I was ecstatic when I saw like, oh yeah, so the motto, you are what you eat, really kind of.
For everyone and everything, yes.
Well, I did a paper on the standard American diet versus carnivore / keto, and I discovered metabolic mind, which basically is a new field of psychiatric metabolic psychiatry, or metabolic psychiatry is the proper name, in Stanford medicine, where high carbohydrates block a lot of neurons in your brain because we have what's called a gut to brain track. Yeah, so that old motto, "You are what you eat," exemplify and it just surpasses not just how you feel, but definitely like how you function cognitively as well. And so they had these diabetes patients, people on the brink of schizophrenia, people on the brink of dementia, switch up their diet from a standard American diet to a ketogenic carnivore diet. 76% reduction in all cases. It was amazing. And so I kind of convinced my bro, who was on the podcast on the weekends, Oscar, to go carnivore for the next 2 weeks. I told him, like, I was 240 at the beginning of the year. I went carnivore and dropped 20 pounds within a month. All water weight, all bloating, all not necessarily fat, but definitely just unnecessary weight that was there. And I'm sure it was some fat, and I'm sure it was some muscle too. But at the same time, it's like I've been carnivore for about 7 months now, and now this doesn't have any correlation for causation, but I definitely always like to mention it because I feel like there is some sort of thing going on with the cognitive function aspect of it. So I did my reading writing tests for WSU Tech. They were at around 220. So that got my reading score for, I think it was like basically like not intermediate, English 1, composition 1, but like a lower level of it. Yeah, so it was like how you say a developing English comp 1 because of my test scores, because they were so low. And that's the time where I was smoking and eating very poorly. Well, I decided, let's take on this carnivore diet and put out weed. And so when I heard that I was gonna get into this class before taking regular English Comp 1, I was all, and she suggested to retake the test, and I was like, fuck it. So I retook it. My score after a month of carnivore, a month of off weed, shot up 50 points.
That's fucking nice.
It's amazing. It was amazing. I wanted to take a fucking remedial class. There we go. That's the one. Remedial classes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was definitely an eye opener, and it was one of the things that I wanted to make, just share and tell people that these high carbohydrates, Cheetos, Doritos, they're really good, highly palatable, but
yes. They're not great for you. I was the opposite, and I'm not super great at it now, but every once in a while I will go kind of the opposite. My body, I have a type A positive blood, which I do think blood plays a factor in what sort of diet you should have. I limited my protein, but upped my nuts, grains, fruits and veg especially. And like you said, water weight down, cognitive function, great.
Interesting. So because of the blood, your blood type, you didn't want to soar your protein a little more higher, or like elevate your protein level?
Yeah, there's a study on it where different blood types, their bodies react to certain foods differently.
Heard that. Interesting.
So yeah, mine is I need to eat more fruits and veg, and have
I never did a blood-based diet, but I've heard of it. How people kind of test their blood work, know what they are, and then go online. What should this blood type probably eat? Well, there was this one. I had a general psychology teacher, and there was these zones. How the world kind of has. Well, it was just a theory by a vegan psychologist. A blue zone, Japan. They eat primarily vegetables. And so he asked me, how was your day? And I always say, another day in paradise. And he says, well, you know what they say about people that live in paradise? I'm like, what? They're in the blue zone. So there's like green zone, red zone.
That sounds interesting. Also genetics and generational genetics based off of what you eat. Like Asian food, they're high in omegas, lots of vegetables, rice is a good staple for them.
Yeah.
Like, and their skin's great.
Well, like a lot of fish,
All that shit.
right? Like their
Yes.
fish
Omegas
proteins,
are
their great fatty acids.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, rice is a sort of carb. And like that's another point my dad made too. It's all like those Asians always eat a lot of rice, but they never gain a pound. And it's like, do you know how much they're eating though? Like they do like a handful of rice and then they do like 2 handfuls of fish. So like you eat half a handful of fish and like 2 handfuls of rice.
And the fermented foods.
Oh, kimchi, kombucha.
Kombucha. I make my own kombucha.
Really, I
love
have to try it.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to try it, like dead ass.
It's coming up in like a week.
Okay.
It'll be ready for F2.
Sick.
But yes, like
What's
we're
F2?
lacking ferment 2. So
Ferment,
you
okay.
ferment it originally, and then you add flavor to it and ferment it for a few days.
Interesting. What kind of flavor are you thinking?
I love doing ginger lemon. I love doing a lot of berries. I don't do anything like bananas or anything like that. It just tastes weird.
Yeah,
It
no,
does.
yeah, I bet.
But citrusy fruits are great in it. Ginger, turmeric,
Grapes. I'm guessing like any. I'm
grapes
guessing.
might be well too. I've
Well,
never
I'm
tried
guessing
grape
like
juice.
things like wine, because wine's fermented, right?
Yeah.
And so like
I don't
you
think
get
it'd be
like
bad.
cranberries, maybe.
Oh, cranberry has been great. I did
Yeah.
pineapple once, and it's so tart.
Oof.
But yeah, we're
yeah.
lacking a lot of like bacteria in our gut because our food isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, penicillin was a good bacteria that helped us, And then you get this like COVID whole scheme, and introducing a whole new experimental bacteria. But we won't get into that.
Yes.
Yeah, we won't get into
Lots
that.
of ideas for different podcast segments. I
Yeah.
like that we have differing opinions, but we can still have great conversations and be
Oh, yeah.
respectful.
Well, this is the thing about dialogue is like, hopefully you learn. I'm definitely learning a lot. You know what I mean? So definitely dialogue is something that's missing nowadays in today's, because like I said, you don't have quote unquote friends nowadays. You have social groups, aka I identify with this person, and so this person's introducing me to his friends, like actual friends, and the next thing you know, you get shut out because you have a different opinion. And it's like, oh, well, I thought you guys were meant. No, they were social groups, just like gender's a social construct. You constructed yourself into a social environment. And so we have these zones of regulation, they call it. So blue is low alertness and negative feelings like sadness, tiredness, and loneliness. Okay, this is the wrong zones, but this is very interesting. Green is calm, alert, feeling like happiness, focus, or contentment. Yellow is higher energy, internal states like stress, frustration, and excitement, and overjoyed, panicked, angry, obviously angry, and terrified feelings in the red.
You know what that reminds me of? Food dyes.
You said food dyes?
They've
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
that's like verbatim what they've said, that each of the colors that are put into our food like makes us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fun fact, Aldi's, if it's Aldi's brand, they don't use artificial food dyes. They
Really?
use like turmeric, beetroot powder, all that shit.
Really? So, I mean, would you say, so like their meat, it wouldn't use like the red food coloring for their meat?
If they have their own brand of meat, I don't think they would.
Oh, so it's
that's
only
like their thing.
so it's only Aldi branded things. Okay, heard that. That makes sense. Because yeah, food dyes nowadays is starting to become like oversaturated with everything. You know what I mean?
It's linked to so many things.
Well, you have these kids cereals, and you wonder why kids are so like wild, and more so than like the kids in like the thousands or 90s. You know, because then I think the 90s they introduced all that food coloring into almost every single candy, every single cereal.
Yeah. And they thought it was sugar at first, but they're learning it still is processed sugar.
Is it?
But processed sugar is, I'm not going to say it's terrible, because your body does need sweetness, I guess.
Does it?
But
I disagree.
look, I'll have to send you some articles. But the processed sugar does a lot of not so great things for your body.
No, yeah. Do you think the negatives outweigh the positives?
I haven't looked that far. I mean, yeah, I would say yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would agree to
There
an
are other
extent.
ways.
Like if you add like a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of sugar, that's
That's
not
a
going
lot.
to do harm,
And
but
if-
it is a lot. Like
Yes.
it is a law.
Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Yeah, the law of diminishing returns, as they say. You do something, you exercise too much, you actually tear away muscle instead of build it. You not eat a lot, you die.
Fair.
Okay, so one of the 5 regions in the world known as Blue Zone, Japan is in. So I wanted
Live
to
longer
specifically,
and healthier, yo.
yeah. So it says where people live longer than average and healthier lives, blue zones are characterized by a lifestyle that includes physical activity, low stress, strong social interactions, a low whole foods diet, and low disease incidence. So when he told me that I might be in the blue zone, I was kind of curious because I'm a carnivore. So all I eat is meat, eggs, salt, butter. Other than that, not really much else. And if it's meat, I'll eat it. Yeah. But I mean, for the last 7 months, it's really been helping a lot. And so I know there's ketovore, basically like 90% meat, but then 10% veggies, fruits, all that good jazz. And I also did the paper that I aforementioned was basically on how vitamin C might contribute. Like, don't you need vitamin C? And it's all like, well, glucose and vitamin C counteract each other. So orange juice is a very big negate of vitamin C because it has so much sugar. And so
I think but there's also, with that, there are foods like, so I used to be big on, it's not herbology. What is it called?
herbology?
That's not the word, but it's what my brain came up with.
Is it the study of herbs?
No, like, so turmeric. People were saying, turmeric's great for inflammation and this, that, and the other. But turmeric has to be paired with black pepper so that your body can process it correctly. Look more into that when you're doing your research, because there are certain foods and certain things that you can do and take that will make your body process those vitamins and minerals and absorb them better. That's the word I was looking for.
So would it be like an immunity, maybe? Or like heart health, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory?
The people that have like apothecaries and use herbal medicine, like that
Botanists?
little niche.
I know botanists are the study of plants. So like,
I don't know why
I
this
think
is
you
slipping my brain.
I think you just said it though, right? The that one where you just said it too. you just said it.
We need to take some brain mushrooms and
spices.
figure it out.
Study of spices, culinary.
On the body.
On the body. Study of spices effects on the body?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you just said it. Apothecary. I think
That's
apothecary.
like the name of like a store, or like a store that has all of these things in it.
No. Apothecary is a person who prepared and sold medicine and drugs, but they primarily use natural substances. Apothecary is an archaic English term for a medical professional who formulates and disposes materia medica to physicians, surgeons, and patients. The modern term pharmacists and chemists have taken over this role. So I guess in the old world they would use apothecary for the people that would make like medicine from plants, but now it's been pharmacy since it's all chemical.
But there's a name for that, like for people that, or for the science of using herbal medicine or something like that.
Let's see here.
I don't know why it's slipping my brain. I went on like a deep dive, just rabbit hole into it. But it's not herbology. I know it's not.
Medicina. Herbal medicine, phytomedicine, or phytotherapy.
Scroll down a bit.
Herbal medicine,
Yeah,
also
it's
called
just
as botanical.
herbalism. That's what it was.
There it is. Where did you? I can't even see that. Where is that?
Oh,
there it is. Herbalism has a long tradition to use outside conventional medicine. Okay, no,
but like a lot of people in herbalism, they they deep dive further into our bodies after so many generations of like not getting what we need have adapted, and so we need help, kind of like using fermented foods to replenish our gut microbiome. Like there's certain foods that you can pair with other foods so that you can get those nutrients that you need out of that food, because otherwise your body can't process it alone.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, the history dates back to about 5,000 years, but Paleolithic age, approximately 60,000 years ago. But this is using the plants not to consume, but definitely to fix maybe deficiencies or like maybe things like that. Because I mean, I honestly have, we've been around for so long, to where you have to think like, I feel like we're probably 90%. Our diet should be 90% protein, 10% anything else. Just because hunter gatherers, you think about that, not going into the whole wokeism, guys, but men hunted, women gathered, and so
Depends on the culture, also.
oh shit, here it comes. Here it comes. I don't think
like
all
linear thinking.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly really feel like it's kind of just a humanistic thing that guys kind of hunt and women laid back and did their more motherly, harness their motherly aspect in taking care of children, being more hospitable, sensitive, all that good jazz, and then men tend to, be the hunters. That's where the question about traditional wives. I mean, what is your opinion? I don't think you did answer that part.
I did not.
Yeah.
We just moved so quickly, so many things to talk about.
I have ADD as fuck, so we come into a topic, I'm rolling into it. So like in today's world, traditional wise, man goes out, works 9 to 5, supports the house, supports all the bills. Woman stays at home, takes care of the kids, cleans the house, fixes some food.
I don't think it is an exact even split.
So do you agree on equality?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, okay, so having been a stay-at-home mom, it is extremely, and I would even go to say maybe more mentally stimulating to stay at home and raise children. And we're realizing that mental health and mental exertion does just as much detriment to the body as physical exertion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
A mom staying at home all morning, because for me it was, about 5 a.m. to like 3 p.m. is exhausting. And, my husband, he worked maintenance for school. So it's physically taxing on him.
What was his hours? Well, wouldn't you agree that, men kind of take the physical aspect hit and then women always take the mental aspect hit?
Yes and no. Having to carry 2 babies around, like with my second, I was diagnosed with palindromic arthritis.
Okay.
So for about 2-3 weeks after I had my second son, I couldn't lift my arm.
Oh, shit.
I either couldn't close or couldn't open my hands without extreme pain. My knees would give out.
What was your diet like within those time periods?
I ate a lot more sugar my second pregnancy. I wasn't focused on as much protein. I didn't drink as much water as with my first.
Okay.
But either way, I have an autoimmune condition now, and that having arthritis and staying home and taking care of 2 small children, having just birthed, even just my first son, and staying home, I still had to lift him, I had to bathe him, I had to cook, I took care of most of the cleaning. It was physically exhausting, not to mention those 10 months where...
So you would argue that you kind of had both worlds, mental and laborious activities?
Yes, I did get more breaks, but what I'm boiling down to saying is that I took care of the mental and physical load of the house all morning while you were at work. You took care of your workload all morning. It is both of our responsibility to take care of this child until we can both rest and go to bed.
Facts. No, yeah, I always feel like there is some sort of equality, but also the equality doesn't come in the amount of work you do, the equality
Mhm.
comes in the partnership that it takes to keep it together. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so like having my parents as a good, source of reference.
Mhm.
They've been together for 35 years. My dad recently re-proposed to my mom. And so he wants to remarry her. He wants to do it again.
That's
Yeah, it's amazing.
amazing.
That's my figure right there. And so, but the way I see them every day, they have their spats, but
Mhm.
he does concrete work. But she was
Cool.
mostly a stay at home. But when she wanted to keep busy, she
Mhm.
still, found Tupperware sales, Avon sales, selling paintings,
Right.
um, going to yard sales, making a flip. You know what I mean? She's the one that taught me. I remember literally at 4 years old coming from California. I don't know anybody, but we're in the apartments.
Mhm.
She bought a box for that because back in the day at Dylan's it was 2 for 1 on the candy bars, and she'll give me a box of candy bars, and she'll be like, "Go around and just knock door to door and sell these for a
Mhm.
buck a pop." Yeah,
Yes,
and
that's
so because I
amazing.
was a talkative kid, clearly,
Yes.
and so yeah, I could just go to doors to any stranger. Hi, hola, would you like a candy bar? And yeah, so she's the
Amazing.
one that taught me, work, which is probably something that we are just naturally inclined to do.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said, at the very end of the day, you know, they both came home from their what happened, because she also worked at the Hampton Inn as a maid, and
Mm.
so that was kind of labor, intensive, I suppose, because doing folding laundry,
On your feet all day.
on
Yeah.
your feet all day, all that good jazz. But she always respected my dad's work and fixed him a hot meal at the end of the day.
That's sweet.
Because as soon as he leaves that door, it's a rough world. And she kind of knew that, you know what I mean? She
Yeah.
she fixed herself meals too at the Hampton and stuff. But when she came home, she has not 5 children, 5 guys, but 6 guys to feed, including my dad. So
Mhm.
she just knew how to make rice, steak on the put steak on the grill,
Yeah.
and make sure every single person. But now she's getting taken care of. She likes to go to Mexico, take a little vacation. Right now she's taking care of her
Amazing.
mother because oh,
Yeah.
praying for my grandma she gets better because she's in surgery right now. But
Mm.
she knows that her sons are going to send her some money, and she can be there as long as she wants. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So it's clearly, in my opinion, a teamwork. It's teamwork.
Definitely.
My dad doesn't take it. I don't think my dad takes advantage of her. I don't think
Mm-mm.
she takes advantage of my dad.
No. And it
Oh
also matters the age of your kids too.
yeah.
Like 0 to 2 at home with mama alone, it sucks.
Oh, you're telling, dude. Literally, I remember being at the apartments and from we're not even going back to California. I
Mhm.
had 2 older brothers who were about like I believe 5 and 6 were at school, and then my other brother who just turned 4 now is 3,
Mhm.
solo dolo, and just being with my grandma, being with my mom. She worked at an
Mhm.
office part time, and so just being around, these two feminine figures. I
Mhm.
mean, that's where I come back to person. People have a lot of personalities, but that shouldn't dictate who you are. Especially
Yeah.
nowadays, people like I said, you see a 2-year-old playing with a Barbie doll, all of a sudden, oh, he might be a girl. We have to go rush him in surgery. Let's pump him full of hormones. It's like relax. This is just a development thing, okay?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I have a definite. Like I took a lot of sensitivity from my mom. Took a
Mhm.
lot of um, prone to because I would say what's that one word? Um, yeah, it'll come to me. But there was a lot of aspects that I took from my mom that were very
Mhm.
feminine. And one of the things about the Tao Te Ching is an old proverb or just basically about ancient um, Chinese proverbs.
Mhm.
So the Tao Te Ching, how people like to say, I live by the Tao, basically yin and yang, all that good jazz. And one of the things about the Tao Te Ching, or one of the proverbs that I discussed with my brother, he obviously didn't agree because he's very masculine. One of the proverbs was recognize the masculine, but keep the feminine.
Mhm.
So it's always a balancing act. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
60-40. It doesn't have to be 50-50 neither, but you have
Mhm.
to recognize what you empower, but keep a little bit of the other one. You know, it doesn't always have to sway to the extremes.
Now, is this
You
the
know what
brother
I mean?
that's on the podcast that you're talking about?
Wait, one more time?
Is this the brother that does the podcast with you on the weekends?
Yeah, Oscar.
And see, from the outside in, you seem a lot more masculine-minded than he does.
I keep the feminine.
Interesting.
I keep the feminine, so I love to dialogue, but also know when to call. You know what I mean? And so when you lean extremely masculine, you kind of want to be right the whole time. It's like relax, kid. Like relax. You know what I mean? I'm right the whole time. Really? Like really? You never swallowed your own mouth. You never swallowed your own tongue. And so I mean, we had my dad like have give us a couple of opinions from him, and he's like extreme masculine, like a Mexican man masculine, like old school Mexican man masculine. Think of like Amish man, but to the extreme. You know what I mean? Like think of Amish man to the extreme. Because I seen a TikTok making fun of, or not even making fun, but comparing like a city male farmer, and then all of a sudden these two guys come over, and one's a Mexican dad, one's an Amish dad, and they were like level 999.
Wow. Our next podcast together, we should definitely look into the masculine and the feminine and what we each consider. Because I know we're coming up on an hour and 45 now.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I mean, you give me a little bit, you know, give me a little bit. We got 15 minutes.
You had asked me about, or you had thought about asking what I considered a woman to be. And I'm not sure if you meant that literally.
No, thank you for bringing it up. Well, in the whole case of wokeism, because I really believe in the mantra, you go woke, you go broke. Yeah, I really believe that. You go woke, you go broke. And it's one of, like I said, I'm conservative. Don't know if this is already gonna, you know, cheat the shade. I'm a Trump supporter, so I'm Mexican too, so that's a thing. But no, yeah, you, one of his things is like you go woke, you go broke. But you know, we're starting to see with Biden, inflation's all the way up. People can't put gas in their tank, and he's pretty woke. Well, he's pretty woke. You know, people can't get a house for a decent price, and you know, there's that part. But also, you know, woke people rather live in tents on the streets in California rather than pay or room with someone with different opinions. And so, back to the Matt Walsh documentary, What is a Woman? It was a serious question to these woke, you know, people doing surgeries on kids or transitioners. He interviews detransitioners. He interviews doctors doing these transitionings. He you know, gets the opinions from a lot of different people from the space.
Is this the guy that, like, he's very blunt, like, he'll just tell you straight out, and he has, like, short black hair. There's one that I always, oh no, wrong one.
Oh no, yeah, it's this guy.
Huh. Not who I'm thinking of, but there's another guy that that I watch a lot, and he has a lot to say about gender and just.
Is
just
he on
everything.
the Whatever podcast? Like, does he do a panel with a lot of OnlyFans girls? And he's like,
no.
Okay. Different. Wait, we'll get that to the next.
He
podcast.
looks like he's on the street almost, in like a little, just like a little booth. You know, you go to parades and you see people just have these like tables with the draped over them. He does have a microphone, short black hair. He gains. Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah. That's the guy. The part of the Turning Point USA. I'm part of. Yeah, he's
I'm
the
bad
organizer.
with names.
It's okay. No, it's totally. Hey, I was bad with music names. People always said, "Have you heard this song?" And I go like, "I heard that song." Or like they'll tell me, "Have you heard blah 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 blah?" You know, the name of the song, and I'll be like, "No." And then they put the song, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that song." Yeah. And so I get it. Yeah, Charlie Kirk.
Sorry, you guys.
No, you're fine.
So I just kind of need to get right
Yeah,
here.
no,
where
you're
you
fine.
are. I
Go
can't
for it.
see
You go
those
for it. You're
stars.
good. You're
So,
good.
I mean, on the
You're
camera.
fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Please don't call me racist. But
No,
for the
go for it.
longest time,
Yeah.
I got Beyonce and Rihanna mixed up. Like, even their voices sounded kind of similar to me.
I don't think that's racist at all. What?
You haven't been on TikTok.
Oh my god! Stay off that thing.
For real. Yeah,
I like YouTube Shorts better. It's this almost the exact same length, and you don't get people constantly putting dramatic things that are going to make them famous. It's
Yeah.
just kind of facts, at least for my feed, because you know how the algorithm works.
Yes.
You search something up, it just shows you even more of that stuff, and so they want you on their app for longer. I remember going on Snapchat and then getting off Snapchat. I started getting never got notifications when I was on there constantly, and then after like 2 days off, it started giving me suggestions of filters I should use. Someone posted a new story. It's all like, "What? I haven't touched you in 2 days. Why do you want me now? Huh?
Yeah.
Why do you want me now? I was
It's
with
a
you.
marketing thing.
You never gave me these notifications before."
Mhm.
But no, yeah, Charlie Kirk, obviously a conservative, obviously conservative values.
Yes.
I mean, what's your opinions on that? Because you still haven't answered the age-old question. What is a woman?
So, what I was raised to believe that a woman is just a, I don't know how to say it without saying woman, person that has a vagina. Period.
But
Point period.
No, but period.
Like,
Pun intended.
like
It's bad.
I don't really love it when trans women want to be like, oh, I'm just gonna call you a cis woman, so we have like that difference. Like, I was original, just called woman.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I was the original like woman, even though
I mean, no, but
in
you
our
kinda
culture,
are.
kind of.
But you kind of are though.
But more so, you don't have to differentiate the fact that I'm a woman because I didn't transition
Yeah.
into being a woman. You
For
can
some
just
reason,
call
yeah.
me a woman.
For some reason, they want to take the term woman for themselves and then call actual women cis woman.
And then they
which
don't want to
pisses women
respect
off.
what women want to be called.
So I've seen this TikTok.
Mhm.
It was just a short of a black woman going like, "Listen, I'm gonna call you whatever you want me to call you, but today I got called a cis woman. I had to go off on this dude.
I want to be called
I'm gonna
cis.
call you woman, but call me woman. I'm a fucking woman. I actually was born with these parts. Like, why?
Yes.
What is a cis woman? You know what I mean? And so I said this 2 years ago on the cast, is that they're not only pissing off the gay community for putting them into the labels, because gays don't even identify with transgender people. They'll respect them, but because they're in the letters, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they're pissing them off. They're pissing lesbians off. They're pissing actual women off. They already pissed men off for joining sports, women's sports, and taking the little opportunity that women actually have in the world of sports. And you're a dude, like, I forgot his name. He was on a swim team, got a lot of popularity.
I've seen both sides of the sports thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get these male track stars that are like placed 236 on the men's round and then transition. Call them, identify as woman. Don't even go to the transition. Those things that actual, like, people go through, surgery wise, hormone wise, but they just identify as women. Go into the sport of women's sports, in the women's locker room, in the women's everything,
Should not be
and they
okay.
place first.
Yeah.
So they're pissing women off now.
Unless you're taking the hormones, because to some extent I did see that taking hormones and fully transitioning, it doesn't do anything to, like, well, it does to your like structure, but I don't think it does anything to your bones.
No.
It does do something to muscle mass. There have been transgender men and women who have went into the opposite sport and not won and not placed more than some of these women. But I think there are certain privileges that come with fully transitioning. Like, if you look like a man, do not walk into the women's restroom.
Yeah.
You are making so many people uncomfortable. There are children in there.
I think if I wasn't so lenient, so like in a different universe, because I don't believe any guy at all born as a man should be in a woman's restroom whatsoever. Because I could already imagine if I had a daughter. Yeah, listen, pal. Listen, buddy. No, you're not going in
Especially
there.
like men's restrooms.
Well, in
It's a lot of
California,
girls.
the most wokest state of them all, there's, once again, black woman literally is in a spa with her daughter, sees a man naked in the women's locker room. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that hasn't
Guys,
been transitioned at all, so he
see,
still has his member.
That's
And
what I'm meaning. It's not okay.
And her daughter is in there. I think she was like 13, 12-year-old daughter. They're having a mother-daughter spa day, and you just see this guy, and she complains to the owner who's Asian, and he doesn't give a fuck. I mean, he doesn't give a fuck. He's like I don't know what to do. Like he identify. I don't want to be canceled. You know what I mean? Like that was a racist fucking accent, but cancel me tomorrow, liberals. But no, yeah, we're starting to get to a point to where we shouldn't be okay with this. It's all like, well, we'll respect you, but now they're trying to put legislation on trans people getting their own bill of rights.
That's wild.
It's getting there. It's getting there. So yeah, a woman is someone who has a vagina. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For real, like at least in our culture. I understand that there are other cultures that have different whatever, but we are in America. And whereas I do want you to be able to honor where you come from and your values and your cores. When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
We're not taking there. So the thing about America, yeah, we're a big cultural mixing pot, but so was Rome. So was Greece. So there was a lot of Indians, Asians in Greece during the Greek times. It's not like they were evicted or like shunned from not going into the Colosseums or like the temples, things like that. But yeah, I like that. I like that saying. I think I've heard it, but yeah, just hearing it more time. Yeah, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And so we're starting to see. Charlie Kirk interviewed a college kid from Asia who was an Asian descent. He's all like, well, America is a big melting pot, and so why don't you, learn Chinese? Oh, because you're in America. We have English. This is our own language. And we've managed to deviate from the regular Old English, from like English.
Yep. And it should be a choice too. Like, I have made it a point to brush up on my Spanish because I've been frequenting a lot of mercados, and I want to be able to converse with folks.
But it's a benefit in the brain function because you're starting to work some different neurons on learning new things.
But it's a choice. It's not being pushed on me.
Well, that part. But I say, when in America, be American, especially if you're working to get a freaking a Social Security. You know what I mean? Like my mom got her Social Security like 3 years ago. But she doesn't know her constitutional rights. And then when I told her, you're an American, you have these certain rights, she's like, really? She literally said, really? And I'm all like, dude, let me tell you about George Washington. Let me tell you about Jefferson. Let me tell you about this thing called the Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Amendments.
What should have been upheld, even though sometimes it's not. And whereas I don't agree with necessarily the glorification of certain folks, it's kind of like the whole R. Kelly thing.
Oh, God.
Like,
yeah, pedophiles can go
what was it? Jefferson, I agree. Jefferson and Washington, like, they were involved heavily in slavery.
No, yeah, so that's the thing, too. Like, they still made a great document, though.
They did.
But we can't persecute the author. We have to look at what he wrote.
But go back to the R. Kelly thing.
Well, we can persecute R. Kelly because he's alive. But the thing that I'm seeing nowadays is the cancel culture is going against dead people that can't even, defend themselves. I think right now what they're doing. So I just, heard this on the Daily Wire is that they're in the bird watching community. The guy that developed the term bird watching, or at least like created the whole genre of bird watching, is being canceled. His name's being canceled because he owned a couple slaves. And so they have to rename all the birds that he discovered, rename all the buildings that have his name on it because of this woke ideology of we must persecute the dead guy for doing what people did back in the day. Yeah, it's all like...
For names of birds?
Yeah, bird names are getting changed because the dead guy that had a couple slaves said, that looks like a meadowlark, let's just say. They're not changing meadowlark anytime soon, but meadowlark. But now they're going like, but this guy owned 4 or 5 slaves. That's not meadowlark anymore. That's gonna be lowlark. I don't know. I don't know. But it's starting to get to a point where like they're persecuting dead people for not and not being able to defend themselves. Nowadays, like if you do something now, like if you're a slave now, okay, obviously,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But even Mexicans were gassed before World War II at the border by Americans soldiers because they thought we were dirty. But will that affect me today? No, I'm just gonna get filthy stinking rich and develop a business and hire Americans and say
Right.
what an amazing country that the people in the top are Asians and Indians and not even white people, black people, or Mexicans, and we're majority of that. And Asians and Indians were prosecuted, but the difference is we're not seeking reparations, wasting our time. They're the ones not seeking reparations, but they're developing American opportunities.
But did it happen like in our
I think
country,
in
like
the
not Canada, Mexico, but in here?
Yeah, the 1960s, Asian Americans were persecuted for so much because of being in New York City, Chinatown, all that good jazz. Yeah, who are they? They're coming from China, the Chinamen, all that good jazz. And then now, 2024, they're the wealthiest people in America.
I think we should focus more on like people nowadays that are doing like dumb shit. Like just back a few years ago when we were talking about oh goodness, what's his fucking name? I feel bad for forgetting his name, but like the police versus black folks. Like yes, absolutely, if they're doing it with racial intention.
Are you talking
Bam.
about George Floyd?
Yes, I am.
We're gonna have to get to that to the next podcast because we have very different opinions on that.
25.
We have very different opinions on that.
No, I just think if someone does something with racial intention,
if
it
it
should
was
be...
racial intentions, if it was racial intentions, if it was.
Yes, if.
In that case, in that specific case, the dude was drugged out. Yeah, unfortunately.
I saw the video.
Yeah, it was terrible. Anyways, guys, that's it for the podcast. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, Grace, for joining me, and we'll ABC on the next one. There's that outro. Not too shabby of a cast.